All right, what is up, everybody? Another Sunday, another podcast, back at it again, like we never left. Hope everybody had a good week. Before we really get into this, I just want to do a little something for Alex here. So give me,
Fuck you.
give me just
Don't
like,
start.
give me like,
Don't start.
just give me
Don't
1 second.
and don't fucking.
Here we go.
All right, I'm out. We like to fuck pigs down south. Suey pig, bring that butthole right over here so I can fuck you. Hey, horns till the day I die. Oh yeah. Put the horns down. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, sorry,
We're back in the playoff before Arkansas is. I am coming for you so goddamn
brother,
hard.
please.
I cannot wait for the day.
Brother, please. Look, Texas
I
said we're
cannot
back, and Arkansas said, "Hey up."
wait. No, we did. Okay, wait a minute.
No, okay,
Wait a
look,
minute.
dude,
Get
y'all
this
beat
shit
you.
straight.
You beat UL like friggin' Lafayette, and decided, oh, we're back, baby. And then Arkansas proceeded to beat the brakes off of you right out of
said-
Fayetteville. Not you, but just Texas fans in general. We're like,
Nobody-
we're back.
Nobody thought
And,
we have a true freshman redshirt quarterback. All right, he went into Arkansas and found out how the SEC plays football, which is the reason why we should be going to the SEC. Because if we ever want to be relevant again, we need to be in the SEC. And they fucking found out
real quick.
It gets played different in the South, brother.
Fucking
Shit gets
smash
played
mouth
different in the
football.
South.
Take it.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, fuck you.
Anyway, sorry.
Fuck the Arkansas Razorbacks. You pig fuckers.
Oh,
You
that's
can
a
all
little bit
suck my
aggressive.
cock. All right, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, just had to do that just because this is a friendly rivalry that we're gonna have for the entirety of our lives. But anyway,
fair enough.
Good times. So this week we are. Oh, Boba followed. Thank you, Boba. And Trev's in the chat too. What up, Trev? Hi, combo. Lux, what's up, Zach? Hey, you don't tell me to take off my Chiefs stuff, okay? This is the Chiefs household. Anyway, back onto topic. So this week we're having a podcast, a discussion about mental health, and we did one of these.
This week we're having a podcast.
We're just having a
doing
podcast. Just doing a podcast.
Casual.
Just having a podcast.
Just
Just
casual
a
every
casual
week.
conversation in general.
Yeah. So no, we did one of these early on in our podcast where we had a little talk about mental health, but we're gonna come back and revisit it again, and we brought Haley on this time, who I don't even know like how
I
to.
can. If you're good, you're
Yeah.
good.
So
I have a mix of experience, so it's kind of hard to quantify in one thing.
Yeah.
I've had
And she's not a Yankees fan, everyone.
no. This is a lie. I swear, it's the only button-down shirt I
She
own.
was born
Just
in
don't-
St.
just-
Louis. Born in St. Louis. Go Cardinals.
Born
Won
in St.
today. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. You're fine. I respect it having to get off of your chest. So, yeah, I am currently in an internship at a place local called Centerstone. It's actually international as well. We do mental and behavioral health work for outpatient, and we work with psychiatrists, therapists, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, all revolving around mental health, and also kind of helping people with low income and helping them find resources and good mental health care, because it is something that is yet to be fully well funded under insurance policies, under anything of that nature. So yeah, that's one portion of it. I've also done clinical rotations in mental wards and psych wards in Nashville as well. And that was an experience. We can talk about it later. And I have no problem. I'm not violating HIPAA by explaining an experience, just no names involved. So,
Right.
let me think, what else? God.
That,
And then my
that's,
final, God, yeah. What?
that's a lot already.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just formulated about 10 questions. I didn't know any of that
Cool.
coming into
Yeah.
this, and I just formulated about 10 questions based on
Cool.
what you just said. So I have a degree in psychology, so I've heard a lot of stories about people that have worked in clinical psych wards that are just very like watch videos. I've never been in a psych ward like personally, but part of getting your psychology degree is, learning about all of those different
Right.
stigma, or not even stigmas, the different diagnoses, I guess you'd say, that people get, and the symptoms along with that. And some of them are pretty fucking wild. So I bet you've seen some shit.
My very first patient on the floor was a brand new admin that was brought in not voluntarily, 18 years old and heavily schizophrenic.
Yeah.
That was my first patient experience in the psych. I've done long-term care prior to that, but yeah, that was kind of, you jump in full body first, like not feet first, head first, just your entire, you just go. And my clinical supervisor was fantastic, and she prepped us enough to kind of be like, hey, this is a very volatile environment. Something can trigger these people that you don't know and that they don't know, and you have to be prepared for something that could happen. And I got to see some things happen. Bro.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
And that was a really cool experience. And I mean, manic bipolar, at the very least, I don't know, like, ask more questions. I could talk about my experiences there without being instigated by questions. I could just ramble. So I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Before we get any further, I'm gonna have to set some people straight here in the chat. Y'all, Alex has definitely told us about his degree before, but it was very early when we started the podcast. There was like a couple episodes like early on where Alex was like, "Yeah, I have a degree in like psychology and stuff," because we talked about like his and I's like schooling. So
I have 2 degrees on that wall right up there. Very expensive piece of paper.
Yes.
Biblical studies and psychology, dual major.
Biblical studies.
Very, very interesting way to, and my approach on religion is even probably more interesting. But it was a perfect mix because I got to, and I went to a Christian school. I wrapped up my degree in a Christian school, so I got to go through like the history of the Old Testament with old 80-year-old Bible thumping like Southern Baptist type dude, and then got to go through, say, I don't know, just basic Psych 101 with a very modern approach to psychology. And I'm like, that's really when I started piecing together. I'm like, huh. In fact, one of my papers that I wrote that was very controversial, I was also baked out of my mind the entire time that I was writing it.
Like that.
Was on why serial killers go to heaven. If you want my approach on that, most serial killer, I don't even know. We don't want to start this topic. Anyway,
I like forensic psychology,
yeah,
though. So please, I would find that interesting.
Most serial killers are abused at a very young age. They have something that happens to them very early on in life. It's a very high percentage of serial killers. Some of them are just true evil motherfuckers, and I don't think those guys go to heaven. But most serial killers really, truly do believe that they are helping society and they're not doing anything wrong.
Because a lot of them have a narcissistic behavioral trait.
They're also very religious, but they've also had something happen to them at a very early point in life that kind of breaks them mentally. So how are you going to hold that person responsible in the eyes of the Lord for conditions and certain circumstances that were completely outside of their realm of control?
Right.
So you're saying that God holds them to a standard that they can't control from a very young age. You could get into it, and people hated me in my Bible classes. They hated me, but it really got my brain like unwrapped from the typical, like, okay, you kill somebody, you go to hell. It's like, well, that's not necessarily how it works, like, I don't know. And I'm not God, and I'm not here to set the rules or make the rules. But anyway, when you have a psychology background and a biblical studies background, you start to think about shit a little bit differently than just like the typical run of the mill, like Karen on Facebook, if you will.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm also at a private university too, so a private Christian university. Sorry, Darth.
Oh, you're fine. So I guess my first question for you, Haley, is going to be I guess at what point or when did nursing slash social work slash like mental health, like caring about like helping people with mental issues and that kind of stuff, like trigger in you, and that was something you wanted to like pursue?
Forever. Like it's hard to like articulate exactly like this is the moment that I want to work with crazy people. Mainly like I empathize with those who struggle with mental health from a young age, because I've been struggling with mental health from a young age. My family members also, a lot of them struggle with either mental illness, mental disability, or mental health issues. And I think a lot of people do. That is a hairless cat.
Sure is.
Okay, sorry.
He's showing his butthole to the world. I accidentally locked him in the closet also, and I'm like, where the fuck is he? I can hear him scratching the door. Anyway. Sorry.
But yeah, so that was probably something that grasped my interest in like middle school. Prior to like really any higher education or higher exposure, prior to a parental divorce as well, before being put into before being placed into therapy before that as well. So before even all of that, I was kind of already interested in the way the brain works. When I was in elementary school, I went to a private Catholic school for about 6 years. And that also started getting my brain working to why this is the way that it is and why things are the way that people believe them. And I think that's a little bit more like philosophy than psychology and like instigated, like, but I asked a lot of questions that got me in trouble, and that's my favorite thing to do. Is ask questions that people don't really feel like answering because it causes them to feel uncomfortable. Yep. And even though like, and that's okay. It's okay to answer things that may be opinionated, but also I just want to ask. I like knowing people's input and knowing the reason why they believe the way they believe things and why they act the way they do. And I've been wondering that since I went to Catholic school, because I'm like, why is this a belief system? Why are people following this? Is it just indoctrined in like their lives from an early age? Or is it something that they fully believe in from their soul and heart? And this is like, rather than they are just exposed to it and grown up with it kind of thing. So that led to, I like crazy people. And I find it interesting. And kind of going off of Alex's point a little bit earlier was, I kind of sat down and reflected on a lot of shit today. And if things are predispositioned to be the way they are, if the like genome is showing signs of something early on, we haven't completely translated the genome. We have only we have completely translated it. We have not completely mapped it to know where psych lands in those things. Like, and
when you say the genome, explain that to people, because I feel like most people don't.
Essentially, your DNA, right?
Exactly.
So, like,
yeah,
your DNA. Like, we can look into your DNA and see you are predispositioned through genetics to have high cholesterol, high blood pressure. But does that also translate to anxiety and depression and things like that? So that's something that is actually still being theorized, like, because we haven't completely, like, we don't really know what to look for, but we know the trigger points. And like, are you born this way, or are you a product of your environment?
That's the nature versus nurture discussion, right? So yeah. I think as a product of my grandmother on my mom's side basically drank herself and pilled herself to death. It took a long time, but she eventually accomplished it. She was already not the most joyous person in the world. Like, so I think that she probably was predispositioned to anxiety, depression. And then once she lost my grandfather, when my mom was like 13, she just went completely off the deep end. Yeah. I'm diagnosed depression. I'm diagnosed with depression, I should say. and I'm typically like a very happy guy. Like you would never know like behind the scenes what's happening up here. Like I would do anything. I would take any pill in the world, like go to any doctor if I could to say like, hey, can you fix this? Like, can you make this all go away? Because I'm generally happy. I want to be happy. I like being around friends. Like in fact, one of my downfalls is I can't say no to a good time. Like it oftentimes.
Here for a fun time, not a long
This is
time.
big facts. This is big
Exactly. That podcast 2 weeks ago, I couldn't say no to a Sunday fun day, and so I ended up like blackout drunk doing a podcast. I can't say no to a good time. Like I like to have fun, and you would not guess it about me if you just saw me on the face. But I'm convinced, going back to the original point, that there's something in my DNA that I inherited that does not necessarily match with my personality. And my brain does not work like everyone else's brain. Like it's just a fact that I need serotonin in a pill. Like, you know, I have to take anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and that it gets a bad rap sometimes because sometimes people are like, well, just work out, like work on your diet and your exercise and you'll be fine. Like, no,
it's not the case all the time.
Yeah, not all the time. It's definitely a case some of the time where people need to get the fuck outside and get some vitamin D, some natural vitamin D, and like exercise and feel better. But that's not the case for everybody.
Right. Yeah. So like on my side, like off of this, so my sister has like, and I didn't understand this for a long time growing up, but after I got to school and she finally went and saw like the doctors and stuff, my sister got diagnosed with anxiety, and I want to say like clinical depression and that kind of stuff. And so that was like a thing in my head. I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense about why certain things happen the way they did when we were growing up. And like my dad struggles with like stress stuff. So now as I went through like a lot of things recently, a bunch of that like same kind of stuff started triggering in me, and I was like, oh, so maybe this does kind of run in the family a little bit, like somewhere in our genes or DNA or whatever, we have a predisposition to certain things triggering us and sending us like into like depression or whatever. Because I went through a point where I was like depressed as hell for a while, and I remember one time just back in college, there was like 2 weeks where I was just depressed off like my ass and didn't want to do anything. Barely went to class, anything like that, and then like later just like snapped out of it, and it was super weird to me, and I just like never thought about it again. And then recently some more stuff happened, and it kind of like it went, but it was like way worse. My like thankfulness and like the thing I'm thankful for is that I didn't need to go get medicine. Like for me, exercising and that kind of stuff was what got me out of it and gave me that serotonin boost and everything to where I could deal with it and move on. So that like kind of goes, I guess you got two sides of that coin. So where like for Alex, working out and that kind of stuff, it's good, but it's not what he needs to get that boost to get him going and out of whatever funk or I don't want to sound like a dick, but like depressive episode or anything. Whereas like I'm on the other side where it's not, I want to say as bad, but like I have a different way of coping with it, I guess. So it's kind of cool. It's interesting to see like just in this with these three people, like how it's it's different for everybody. There's no blueprint and fix for like a fix all for everyone.
Yeah, and medication is a trial and error process. I too have taken SSRIs and have had to try different serotonin reuptake inhibitors for the SSRIs. That's what that means. I apologize. Because it's not a very common thing to be treating anxiety and depression together, but it can be very beneficial to some. Some people take benzodiazepines, which is like Xanax, and harder things and I shake my head at those too because those are very, very not regulated well and given out like fucking candy. And yeah,
and I'm not shaking my head because I don't think they work. That's just
they do.
They do. That's not my I cannot take Xanax. I was prescribed Xanax for a month, and I would take a Xanax like an hour before I was planning to go to bed, and I'd wake up on the couch and it'd be 3:30. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like
they're the most highly addictive. One of the most highly addictive drugs on the market is benzodiazepines, alongside amphetamines like ADD medication, which I also take.
Same. That's my cocktail. That's my happy pill. Is 10 milligrams of Adderall, 20 milligrams of antidepressant. It's a generic one. I can't remember what it is, but like I cannot take downers because that brings me all the way down. Yeah. And also, I just want to shout out my sister Mary, who's in the chat right now.
Oh, awesome.
She was huge and very influential on my track to actually realizing, because what they say about like you don't know you have depression until you're at the point where you're like, I can't figure out what the fuck is wrong with me. Like I am sad and everything around me is great, but I want to fucking crawl into a ball. Like I want to kill myself. Like those words are used very out of context sometimes, but like I was in a suicidal episode where I'm like, I had it all fucking planned out. And I started to scare myself to where I'm like, you need to figure out what is wrong with you, because you're going to end up one of these days following through with that plan, and you need to get out in front of it. I lost a cousin to suicide, and there's something in my genetic code that has predispositioned me to feel this way. And it wasn't until I started realizing that to where I could really start to get better and help myself. And again, like I'm the last person in the world that you would guess feels that way. 'Cause I'm a generically happy guy. Like I'm the one that's cracking jokes. Like I'm typically one of the loudest in the room, like making friends with everybody. You would never guess, again, what's going on behind the scenes. But behind the scenes, there's a totally different picture that's being painted, and you can't control it. Like I wish I could, but you just can't. So anyway.
No, it's almost always, I mean, not almost always, that's a kind of a stupid thing to say because that's an absolute. But more oftentimes than not, and when you look at a population pool that is suffering from chronic depression, it is the ones that are the most extroverted sometimes and the ones that are the most open with people and having a good time that are putting on, that's kind of either their defense mechanism, coping methods to deal with what they are going through, because it's making the environment around them a happier place because they are, contributing to the happiness of others, but putting so much energy into that is taking away the energy that they should be giving to themselves sometimes. And it just kind of, it's a hard cycle. And I've also been in that cycle before where I've become such a people pleaser. And that's why I take note in my mental brain about, like you saying, I can't say no to a good time. When saying no is sometimes the most liberating thing to do. But yeah, you're hurt on that hard. And I think a lot of people, I mean, I've only been able to kind of glance over at Chad a few times, but yeah, I think you are not the only one that feel that way.
Yeah. Well, like an example of that, one of the biggest examples is like Robin Williams. Like that dude was just like hilarious, funny, gave so much light to so many people. And then all of a sudden it was just like, what the heck? Like he killed himself? Like what? And you come to find out later as everything panned out that he was like severely depressed like all the time and that kind of stuff. But he just tried to do his, his best to make, like you said, Haley, to make everything better around him to try and like, I guess, help himself out. And then at the end, he just burnt the candle at both ends and got to a point where he couldn't do it anymore.
He was on Letterman, and this is one of the hardest clips for me to go back and watch because Robin Williams resonates hard. Like his relationship with Coco the gorilla, like that guy was such a fucking pure individual. Another great story about Robin Williams is he went and watched Joe Rogan one time at a comedy show and stood in line outside to meet Joe Rogan afterwards. Beard, glasses, hat, the whole thing. And you stand in line just like any other guy. and walks up and is kind of chopping it up about Joe Rogan, like, or about his set. Like, I really loved your transition here, and I love your transition there. And about a minute into their conversation, Joe Rogan's like, "Holy shit, this is Robin Williams." Like, I didn't recognize this guy. Like, he's just out here standing in line like every other Joe Schmo out here. And like, holy shit, this is actually Robin Williams. So anyway, I love the guy, and I wish he was still around. But he had a set on Letterman, not a set, an interview, and he was saying to Letterman, there was some joke about how many times he had been married, and he was like, "Yeah, it's like when you marry a chimpanzee, you know, for like the first few months, it's really cute and it's fun to be around, but eventually you realize, holy shit, I just married a monkey. I'm the monkey." You know, and it's funny, but it's also so fucking heartbreaking that he viewed himself like that, you know, that he was fun to be around for a while, but then he just became a burden on everybody that he was around. And that's the fucking picture of depression. Like, that, if you could frame it in a way that's possible, like, everyone around you is like, "I love you, like, you're so fun to be around," you know, but on the inside, when you're predispositioned to that, you're thinking, "I'm just going to end up becoming a burden to people that I'm around. So it would just be better for me to not be here," versus having those good times, but eventually becoming a burden. And like, for me, that's like, it hits home. Like, I'm not Robin Williams. I would love to be Robin Williams, you know, but what I'm trying to say is, it's not always what it is on the outside. Like, the people that are struggling the worst often are the happiest people that you're around. And it sucks. It's shitty.
It does really. I'm gonna catch up with chat just to here in just a second. I do want to say one thing really quick though. Just guess like some sort of disclaimer. So we are not, like, obviously mental health professionals, and we're not here trying to give advice on anything. We're just like kind of having a discussion about it. If you know, are feeling suicidal or have any thoughts like that, if somebody could throw the suicide hotline in the chat, that'd be super great. I don't remember it off the top of my head. That's on me. But yeah, I just needed to put that out there before anything else. I'm going to go back to what Mary said earlier. I think I just scrolled past it.
And if I can interject there also, again, I am not a suicide expert or a doctor. Call the hotline if you feel that way. But you can also, at any time, find me on social media, find Ben. I'm sure Haley would feel the same way. Find one of us on social media. We're not the experts, but please find me and I will
you need
talk
an ear
to you.
If you need an ear or somebody to listen, that's what we're here
Anytime, no matter who you are, please reach out to me, because I've been there. I've had a wellness check called on me on a night where I was suicidal. One of my best friends called Omaha Police Department, and I hated her for it at the moment, but in the long run, it was the thing to do. So I feel you, I hear you, I'm there for you. So
something really interesting, actually. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
It actually does have to do with chat, if that's anything.
Yeah.
So I can't read the name because I'm in dark mode and the name is dark blue and I have bad eyes. Galley or Force or something. Yeah,
Gale Force, yeah.
Gale Force. Sorry. Sometimes, that can happen. And there are initiatives in some cities. I know in my current city, there is an initiative happening right now where there's a special sect of Metro Police being specially trained with social workers in crisis intervention specifically, and to specifically deal with people who are suicidal. So there would be, per se, a different number to be called when you are feeling this way, especially, and they can actually come and intervene, and there be a person there who is actually like physically and mentally trained. Hey, Doge. And I'm hoping that this is an initiative that can go nationwide. It does take time, resources tax dollars, I'm sure, as well, to do the extra training to do those things. But there are strides, and small ones at that, but strides to appeal to those who are in mental health crises. As I guess, so not to be like the most like negative, like sometimes getting put on hold when you're in a suicidal episode is fucking terrifying. I couldn't imagine that. And yes, call a friend, call your support system. If you have, if you see a therapist that is willing to take calls after hours, that's crazy. I don't know many that would do, but yeah, that's awesome. Social workers are just as trained in these things as well. Go to a hospital. Nurses are great in dealing with these situations as well. They've been specially trained to deal with people who are in suicidal episodes as well. There are resources. I'm not gonna discredit the hotline in any way. And I'm sure if you look in your state legislature, there might be things moving through in your current city where they are talking about doing crisis task forces. And it's a really cool initiative. I'm proud of Nashville because we are a southern state. In a lot of southern states, there are stigmas around mental health, and they are ignored because people just want you to ignore the problem, look at the Bible, and sit there in your corner and you read the Bible, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, and that's sad. And so it's very exciting to have, a larger metropolitan city in the South taking initiatives to do crisis task forces. So people being actually specially trained and stuff. So yeah, so off my soapbox on that one.
No, you're fine. Earlier, Mary had mentioned something about, what is it called, the White Blossom study?
Do you have that pulled up?
She said she sent you some screenshots, so I can pull it up real fast.
I have it. You can pull it up on screen if you'd like to.
I'm just gonna let me type it in, but you guys go off on that.
Also, my therapist, Tara Thompson, I don't think she listens to the podcast, but if she ever does, because we're friends on Facebook, she is the fucking best. She's
now
like,
call a therapist out there for real.
she is like, I actually don't see her regularly anymore because we got to a point where she was like, you're pretty good. Like, if you need me, let me know. But honestly, I don't think that we really need to meet regularly anymore. And it's because I could text her. I could text her right now and be like, Tara, I'm in trouble. And she'd be like, where are you? What do I need to do? Like, she would be there for me. So if you're in Omaha and you're looking for a therapist, Tara Thompson, she's on Google. She's awesome. She's my fucking best friend. Anyway, this White Blossom study. So male mice bred with female mice, when their pups smell the scent of a cherry blossom, they become more jumpy and nervous than pups whose father who hadn't been conditioned to fear it. To rule out that the pups were somehow learning about the smell from their parents, they were raised by unrelated mice who had never smelt the cherry blossom. The grandpups of the traumatized male also showed heightened sensitivity to the scent. So basically what this is saying is there was a group of mice that were trained to be very wary of a cherry blossom scent. And the offspring of that specific control group grew up to be more jumpy and conditioned to fear the smell of a cherry blossom. So it basically showed that you can genetically be predisposed to you can be disposed genetically to fear a certain thing because of the fact that your, say, ancestors feared that same thing. And then the quote that I'm reading now that I think kind of sums this up, it's not that fear is being passed down through generations. It is that fear in one generation leads to sensitivity in the next. So it and you go into a completely different like genetic conversation that's like way more scientific and biological that I'm smart enough to understand. But there is like that tribalism, or that it's why cheetahs are born fearing lions, right? Because that's the predator that hunts them the most. So a cheetah isn't learning that a lion is their main predator. They're born knowing, hey, stay the fuck away from lions. Like if you see a gazelle, probably going to be fine.
Get after it.
Like
Yeah.
we're good. Yeah. Like we can go frolic in the prairie grass together, you know, but there is a certain genetic code and genetic predisposition mentally that is pretty evident, I think, in science at this point in time that does get passed down.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to allude to the fact that wasn't like solved per se.
No. Yeah.
Right. It's just interesting. Like we are getting almost to the point where we could take a piece of DNA and find those markers and have a definition to those markers. So if that makes sense, like it would actually predisposition to things like that are yes. It runs in a lot of things run in my family. I am no excuse, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that we can, like I said, pinpoint high cholesterol. I want to be able to pinpoint in a genome, and I am not even going into the field of it. I'm just bitching at this point. I want to be able to pinpoint in a genome and look at my DNA and be like, oh, that chunk of RNA is speaking to me as anxiety and then the disorder. Like this might be wishful thinking at this point, but it tells me the disorder. And
right.
Like, so it's we're alluding to almost to that though. Like genetic translating is in the process of occurring because now we know that people are predisposed. I think one of the most interesting conversations about predispositions is addictive behaviors and whether they skip generations sometimes. I don't know. That's another thing that I've been interested in looking at, but yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that I planned to talk about. It's you can argue that addictive behaviors are passed down.
Right.
I think that's true. It's not necessarily the addiction to the specific chemical that you're abusing, but it's people that struggle for mental health find themselves in this really fucking horrible pattern that they are sad and they don't know how to get better. So what's a good way to feel better? Well, drugs make you feel great, right?
Yeah.
Like
drugs, alcohol.
Like, yeah, drugs, alcohol, you name it. Cigarettes, nicotine, heroin, cocaine, whatever. So let's say like before I was prescribed Adderall, I was looking for that kind of like pick me up, you know? So if I would utilize cocaine, I would feel a lot better when I was using it. But then there's always the
crash
circle to where when you get off, you feel fucking horrible. You feel worse than you did before the circle started. So now what's the best way to get back up to the top of the mountain? Use more.
Right.
So now if I use more, I feel good again. But now when the circle comes full again, I was here and then I was low and now I'm back again full circle. So I'm even lower. So what's the best way to get back up to the top of the mountain? You use more. So then you use more and then you're even lower. So you're stuck in this fucking circle, this vicious cycle of fucking trying to chase feeling good when this topic isn't talked about with most people because it's like taboo or like it's not okay to not feel okay, which I am not enlightened. What's the word I'm looking for? I am feeling better about the whole mental health scenario because the topic of the conversation has opened up a lot more.
Right.
And the shame, the taboo behind it has lessened over the last few years. But people who struggle from mental health find themselves in this really shitty like genre categorization of like, well, now I have mental health issues and I'm abusing drugs. So now I really can't say shit to anybody. Like I just have to keep trying to figure this out by myself. And that's when you lead to situations that end up in someone taking, not it's the only way, but it's one of the situations where someone ends up taking their own life because you just can't get right. You just can't get to where you want to be.
Right. So off the addictive personality thing, I think like both y'all made a good point. I think another thing that comes into play with that is more of the nurture side of it. So if you're stuck, or not, I wouldn't say stuck, but if you're like born or grow up in a household where a parent or both parents or somebody is, abusing or addicted to like a substance, and that's just all you know. So then it kind of sticks with you, and you're like, oh well, my dad or whoever like did this, so then that must be like fine, be okay, something that we can do, and then it just keeps precipitating over and over and over again, and then it just becomes like generational. And then it's gonna wait to take like one person to finally like wake up and go, yeah, I don't want to do that, because I've seen how it destroyed our family for generations. So I'm gonna be the one to break the cycle. But that's also like a hard thing to do. So that was just like my little 2 cents on that a little bit.
I got excited when you said that, just because it's very interesting. And I mean, I can bucket, I guess. I'll speak a little bit on vulnerability.
Go for it.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in a home like that. I live in a great home. I live in a upper middle class home family, with a mother that struggled with drugs and alcohol, and I saw that. And instead of like learning from that behavior and implementing the behavior, I rather went, the other
direction. Yeah.
Followed in her
Right.
footsteps. Yeah.
Yeah, you took it on yourself to go, that's not going to be me.
Right. And I made that decision at a young age. I knew I would love Coke too much, and that's why I never did it. And like, because I take Vyvanse every day. I don't really know if that makes me even better. It doesn't really, because when I don't take my Vyvanse, I am done for the day, because I've been taking it almost every day for the past 6 years. Yeah. So it's just an interest. Like, I don't know if like that makes me better because I'm on a prescribed medication that is essentially meth, and because it is an amphetamine. And actually, Darcy, you and I talked about this. Sorry, Ben. Talked about this earlier today about like the weird shit like that. Big pharma again. I mean, we could talk topic, I'm sure.
That's fine. That'll get Alex and I like fired up because we love shit talking on big pharma, big whatever.
I mean, I know it's a class 1 drug. I have to go through a lot of different steps in order to get my medication monthly, but I still do. And I had to take a lot of testings and like classifications in order for me to even, for my psychiatrist to be like, yeah, you ADD girl, you ADD bad. Like, and so, but not all mental health and psychiatries do that, because they're just like write a script and gone.
Yeah.
Why some people do fall into drug habits. Happened with my mother. The dude was writing her Xanax and sending it in the mail, which is, I'm pretty sure, illegal now. But
yeah.
Very illegal.
So, yes. So, and she just thought that was a norm rather than this is not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes with socioeconomic, I believe, nurture, education, which could also play a part in socioeconomic, depending. But yeah, it's a rough fucking cycle.
Yeah,
and there's not a good answer on how to be like, this is how we mitigate this. This is how we fight the horrible drug abuse problem already, but also help the stigma behind mental health and the stigma behind medications, because it can be regulated. It's just a matter of how.
Right.
There's no good answer.
No, there's not. And talking about the stigma about mental health and stuff, we're going to touch a little bit on specifically like men's mental health, because that's been something that's just been like crapped all over for forever. And Haley, you and I did like talk about that a little bit too when we were discussing, what to talk about on the podcast and like where that originated from. And I'll let you tell them all what you told me here in a second, but Yeah, it's just been I'm glad to see now that the stigma around like dudes and men asking for help is lessening rather than the constant perpetuation of you're a guy, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, buck up and go on. And I mean it's tough. So like for me personally, I had a thing like I guess a little bit of like a mental break not too long ago. Part of it was due to some personal issues, and part of it was, as you guys know, having to deal with this stuff that had been happening in Afghanistan and my military ties, and all of it was just weighing super heavy on me. And eventually, like one day, it all came to a head, and I like on my lunch break from work had like a break, and I wasn't really in a position where I could talk to anybody about it, so I had to like blast some music in my car while I was on my lunch break, have a quick little like cry about it, like get it all out so I felt better, and then just shut everything off, wipe my face, and walk back into work like nothing happened.
Well, just man up, dude.
Yeah, which is essentially what I had to do. I had to
man
literally
up.
just go
just fucking be a
bootstrap,
man.
like
You know,
bootstrap.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
get after it.
why don't you just man up and fucking stop crying, Ben? And
Yeah.
just dude, just man up.
Just
Come
man
on.
up. Yeah. So I had that, which I was thankful it was a gym day for me because then like I was able to go I was able to go to the gym later and like work out and kind of like process it while I was doing that and feel like and feel better and go on about my day. Um, but if I had needed to, I could have like called my therapist at that point and been like, "Hey, I am not like doing hot right now," and she would have like got me in, and we would have had like a talk about it within the next couple of days, and it'd been fine. Um,
Or you can call
which
me.
I'm
So you know.
yeah, which I'm like super thankful for. But it's nice now like having less of a stigma about it because like could have called somebody, and if somebody at work had been like, "Hey, dude, what's up with you?" Like I could have told them and like talked to them like about it. Wouldn't have been like a big deal as like it would have been like a few years ago even. But I'm glad that finally enough people like are looking at it and going, dudes like go through a lot, and we maybe need to start taking care of them a little bit more because we're losing them to like suicide and addictions and other types of things. And it's something that doesn't need to like to happen. So
I remember the first time that I had a real panic attack. I'll never forget it. And I have a sensory overload to where I respond with panic. Like it can be just too many people asking me too many questions at one time. And my response is I start sweating and I start crying and I freak the fuck out. I'll never forget it. And it was just like a Friday night where like my siblings were asking me if I wanted to go to the fair with them, and my parents were asking me if I wanted to stay for dinner, and I'm like feeling freaked out, and I just lost it. I just had a panic attack. And I remember my mom, who is the most loving person in the world, like she didn't understand what was going on. She was like, "Are you on drugs?" or like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "No, I don't know what's happening," and she's like, "Well," and I remember my dad at work was talking to the attorney general about some sort of insulation project. She's like, "Well, your dad is handling all of these, really high important things, and like this is just a basic question. Like, are you sure you're not on drugs?" Basically, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure," and don't necessarily compare me to him. And this was way before I was ever diagnosed with depression and all that. But it is that stigma of like, well, he can handle it, so why can't you handle it?
yeah,
And it's like, my brain doesn't work the fucking same as his does. I have different chemicals floating around, and I need a little help from time to time to balance those out. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the stigma that men have, especially in the mental health realm, I'm glad to see that slowly fading away. and the it's okay to not be okay sort of trend and stigma picking up, because it is okay to not be okay.
Right. And to go off of that, sorry, Haley. Jesus mentioned something in the chat. He said him personally, he thinks that it's men's mental health is being looked at mostly in America. It definitely isn't happening for Hispanic men or Asian men or Middle Eastern men. Their outlook is still be a man. Which is, yeah, you're 100% true on that, Jesus. That's a cultural / generational thing that's just been passed down through a lot of those cultures, because the man is the provider for the house, and you have to be be a man and be strong all the time, and take care of your family before you take care of anything else with yourself. And I hope, and my hope is that eventually that changes some way somehow, and hopefully this change that we're seeing now, like as it's focusing here in America, where we're like it's okay for dudes to not be okay. I hope that goes and permeates into other parts of the world and other cultures, where everybody can kind of like take a second and look and go, yeah, it is okay to not be okay, and like hey dad, like how are you doing, like how are you holding up, like what's going on, and then be able to talk and not have that stigma about it. And then on the flip side, have those men not just brush it off, but like look at that and go, okay, somebody cares and like wants to know, and then it can start a pattern of hopefully changing that.
My sister Abby, other sister in the chat, thank you for being here, is right. I did have a car accident like right after that, and that's when I completely broke. I didn't break in like a way of like I freaked out. I just completely shut down. Like I was as like catatonic as possible. Like no emotion. Everyone was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like you just could not get anything out of me. I was just shut down. Like the lights are on, but nobody's home. Like you're not getting fucking any emotion out of me. I'm just done. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Don't want to be here anymore.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. This is not like, by the way, I don't want to, I'm saying all of this so that everyone knows I'm
okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable, not like, oh, poor Alex. And that's the other thing about depression. Like when I was diagnosed and I started telling people like, yeah, I've been diagnosed with depression, people are like, oh, you're so brave. You're so brave. I'm like, I'm not.
They romanticize it weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's thanks to Twitter, I think. Anyway.
Tumblr started.
Yeah.
All of it,
like,
yeah.
Like I'm a sad boy, like, oh, pity me. Like I don't want to be pitied. In fact, that's the fucking last thing that I want. I want you to see me as the happy guy and the guy that's cracking a joke, and I want you to see me and be like, Alex is here, this is gonna be fun. I do not want to be pitied. I don't need your sympathy. I appreciate it, but I'm saying all of this not to be pitied, but to just talk about the fact that it's okay to feel this way.
Yeah.
Just want to get that out there real quick. Do not feel bad for me. You do
I
not have to feel bad for
me. Because I empathize.
No, I mean? And I'm not saying.
No, I know. I just want to make sure, like, I empathize with that, and I think a lot of people do empathize with that because they've also felt it. And I hope that hearing the both of you talk, because you both are, male individuals, and the more, and I know that again there is a much larger movement happening again in America, mainly, of dudes and men of all ages being like, hey, I don't really feel that great, and you're just gonna have to hear it. And I love that, and I'm such a huge advocate for that, because I think talking about our shit will make it a lot easier to talk about our shit, because we should have like there's I mean, I know this sounds kind of stupid, but like freedom of speech, like if they can talk about sex on the internet, why can't I talk about I don't feel good today? And taboo things is just it. I'm hoping to see a decline in people being so oppressive on a lot of the topics. But something I wanted to mention that Ben and I talked about was I took a lifespan psychology course in my, I don't even know how many years of school I've been in. It is. But one of them was talking about, the stigma behind boys and young boys being brought up a certain way and why they were brought up that way and why your parents brought you up a certain way and why their parents brought them up that way, blah, 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 down the line. It's very interesting because in our textbook, and I could probably bring it up really quick, but if you look at like children's like nursery books in the like 1940s, like 1930s, 40s, and 50s, probably 20s of course too, but like it was like girl, like a dollhouse, a boy was like a strong GI Joe doll, already implanting in a very young child's brain, which is incredibly you can implant on that real easily.
You said this is lifespan development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my favorite courses. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, very interesting for sure.
But yeah, so it my professor was like, well, this is kind of where it starts and where the expectation of boys to not express certain things. I think another thing down the line was it was kind of like, cringy isn't the good term to use. I don't like using that term for things that are like educationally related, but like it was like, like why would you teach your children to be in such a small space and not express themselves? I think girls like had like a nurse's kit to be empathetic, like because nurses are naturally empathetic, and boys had what's a classic?
That was like Tonka trucks or army dudes or like farm stuff.
Right. And it's like those career fields don't allow you typically to access how to process your emotions effectively.
Right.
And that has been a generational thing. And your parents were taught that. My parents were taught that. Their parents were taught that. And it was kind of like, kid don't cry, boys don't cry.
Yeah.
And then
I think you just said it best. It's the education around it, right?
Yeah.
Because from generation to generation, if one generation isn't educated the proper way, then the next generation is going to be educated just the same way as the previous generation.
Exactly.
So beginning to have these talks and these conversations, well, I cried. I bawled like a baby. I was hungover as shit. My dad did not understand depression. He doesn't get it, and that's fine. Like, he's an Iowa farm boy. I don't expect him to, right? He was very pivotal also. The day that I really started realizing like something's wrong, like that something is not working the way that it's supposed to be working. Because when you're, especially as a male, like you're growing up, you're like, okay, job, well-paying job, check. A house, check. Nice truck, check. Girlfriend, check. Like I'm checking all the boxes, of what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, but I still get to the end of the day, I'm like, I'm just fucking sad. Like, nothing is making me sad. I have everything that I'm supposed to have. Like, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing, but it's not enough. And I distinctly remember my dad coming over. My dad and I never get into it. Like, he's my best friend, but we worked together at the time. And we kind of had like head-to-head battle at the office. And I knew I was being like, forgive my language, like a little bitch, about this specific thing. And he was like, what's going on? I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. Like, fuck that. I'm going home. And he followed me from the office to my house. And I'm sitting on the couch crying about seemingly nothing. And my dad knocks on the door and he walks in. He's like, what's going on? Like, what's up? And he doesn't get it. I don't get it. Eventually I'm like, I think I need help, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, start going to a therapist, blah, blah, blah. And I'm hungover as all hell. We're going to drive to my grandma's house on Thanksgiving. And he's a guidepost reader. He gets out his guidepost. He's like, I earmarked this page on depression, like this writer's child has depression, and I'm reading it, and I just want you to know I'm trying to understand, like how I'm gonna start fucking crying. And it meant so much to me. Like, you're realizing that what I'm dealing with is not my fault. This isn't something that I've chosen. Like, but you understand that I have it, and you're trying to understand it, and that means so fucking much to me. Like, you have no idea. Like, yeah, just be there for the other person. You know, understand that it's something that they can't control. It's just a part of their life, and it's something they have to live with. And we'll all get through it. We'll all be fine. Brighter days ahead, and just be there for people. You know.
Yeah, I wish more people knew that and would practice that daily with friends or family members or whoever that they're close to that they know have it, rather than just going, okay, you know, this is what they deal with and there's not much I can do, when in reality, like you said, just being there and knowing that that's what they're going through, and just being someone that they could vent to at times, or just even like someone to sit and listen and comfort you, is like, it's huge, like you said. So I wish, and my hope maybe from this episode is that gets out there, and that, you know, people know that, like, that at maybe a minimum is all we need. And just to put it out there, and, you know, like, just to put it out there for anyone that's like listening, like Alex said earlier, like, he and I both are here. Like, our socials are at the beginning of this stream and at the end. So if you need to, like, take a picture of it, write it down, and get a hold of us. And I know he and I both will respond as quickly as we can when we see it. And we'll be there for you, and we'll do whatever we can or whatever you need us to help you out. If you just need somebody to sit there and listen to you and vent, then, like, go for it. Just send it.
I think, like, with that, I know, like, again, like, Alex prefaced this is like, yeah, we are not mental health professionals, like, but there is a skill learned when you have gone through certain things and traumatic things in your life. There's a skill learned through those moments that you start to learn how to empathetically listen to people, because that's all you wanted, was to be empathetically listened to. And sometimes you may not have the best thing to say to people when they come to you with problems, but if you just listen, and sometimes that'll just be it.
Yeah.
I've been honest with people in the past, like, have come to me about certain things that I don't really know how to respond to. And I've been honest, I don't know how to respond to this, but I hear you, and what you're saying is valid. You are valid. You are valued. Like, I apologize that I don't fully know how to respond to what you are telling me or give you any sort of, like, advice, but you are heard. And sometimes that can just be enough.
Yeah.
For somebody.
You're heard, and I love you. And right. How can I be there for you?
Right.
You know, that's all it takes. Just loving on somebody. You know, like, my dad doesn't get it, and he will tell me he doesn't get it, but he's the first person to start worrying about me, to be like, you're okay, right? Like, everything's okay. Like, you're good. And again, just having someone there that you know loves you and cares about you and wants you to be okay, that's all it takes.
Right.
For sure.
We bounced around on many different topics on that one.
Yeah, we did. But I mean, that's just kind of how these conversations about this topic go. I'm going to bounce back to something that Ednut said a little bit earlier. She said, now, if only employers understood that. And that's another big thing that I hope and pray gets a little bit more light shed on it, or anything. Jesus' like rebuttal to it was actually, like, on the head as well, because he said employers only pay attention when productivity and profits are down, which is a sad and unfortunate truth about things where, you know, in America at least, companies and employers could give a shit less as long as they're making money. So, like, when you call in and go, hey, I'm not going to be into work today because I need to take a mental health day, they at times will like, you know, kind of retaliate. They'll laugh or they'll like retaliate against you like at work about it and be like, okay, you can take a mental health day, but like this, and this is like, you know, like we're gonna dock you for this or like dock your pay or whatever because that's not under, you know, your PTO or your sick time or anything like that. And then, you know, if you're struggling mentally or anything like that and your productivity goes down, you're gonna be one of the first ones that they send out the door because they don't care.
That's the worst part about it.
And it sucks a lot because then now you have a person who is struggling and now they're jobless with no benefits or insurance to utilize to take, you know, to go and get themselves taken care of. There's a few companies that like actually, you know, care about it. I hated this job, but one of the things that they did right was they had signs up around the job place, the workplace that, you know, for counseling services or whatever that they would pay for through, you know, your company benefits or whatever, like that. So that was nice. And there was a time because I was going through some shit where I looked at my boss and I was like, look, man, if my productivity or anything goes down, it's because I'm dealing with some shit. So I'm like doing my best to like keep working, but like if you notice anything that's different, like that's what's happening. And he was like, all right, you know, just do what you got to do, and if you need help, like there's help for you available. And I was like, no, I appreciate it, but you know, I've got a therapist, but you know.
Well, and in the age of like it made me laugh during Pride Month where, you know, like Amazon is changing their social media page to like a pride flag. Like they don't give a fuck about LGBTQ. Like Amazon could care less. Why are they changing their profile picture to that? Because it's going to be more profitable.
Yeah.
That's exactly why. Like they could give a fuck less. When you get to that major scale, I'm not saying all corporations. The company that I work for right now, and a big reason why I work for them, and they're not based in the same city that my house is in. I have to drive, and I'm there Monday through Friday. I'm not home, but I work for them because they care about me. And that was not something that I had with my previous ownership and employees. It was numbers, and they don't give a fuck. And if the numbers are good, you stay, and we love you. And if the numbers are bad, you're gone. That's it. You know, and there's a definite model there where you do have to be profitable. You know, you can't have people calling out every day. And I understand that, but there is a certain point in time where if I tell my now employer, hey, I need a day, they're going to be like, cool, take a day. You know, but that's not the model across the entire country, because when you get up into the Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks, the only thing is to drive profitability. That's the only model. And if you drive profits, or you're our favorite. And if you don't drive profits, then you can hit the road. And that's where capitalism gets a bad name sometimes. There has to be an equal balance of, we care about you, therefore you're going to be more profitable for us. Therefore, this is all going to work better if you're in a good spot. And that's missed on a large corporate scale.
I have a vision, and it may be completely, like, it sounds actually kind of weird when I say it like this, but like I have a hope for future companies in terms of training future employees. And it is something that I'm already being trained in now as a student going into my field, because my field, social work, is one of the largest fields in terms of burnout and like really bad burnout. Because a lot of people who go into social work do go into, like, you know, child services, and they see shit that they don't know how to process properly. So now they are implementing into the actual criteria and criterium, like an entire, like even in the nursing program as well, they did death and dying as an entire course, and how to cope with death and dying. And now in social work, they've actually incorporated burnout and self-care and whatever, you know, that looks like for you in the criteria. And as something that you have to understand going forward in your education. Before you go into the field, you have to know, or at least have some grasp on noticing your burnout, how to communicate it, and how to deal with it. And I still struggle. I mean, shit, I struggle with that. I've been in school for 6-7 years without a bachelor's degree. I am burnt the fuck out. But I've also gained the skills and tools throughout my time in that, how to kind of moderately deal with it. I mean, it's whether or not I execute upon it, and I hope that going forward into any field that someone chooses, that there is somebody at least on site trained, and I hope it would probably be a human resources person that is trained in trauma care in crisis, and how to help somebody through burnout. Because a lot of times in career fields, again, I'm not the only, like, social workers aren't the only one feeling burnout. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure Ben feels burnout all the time in his field, and I couldn't imagine being a part of military, Air Force, any of that. I couldn't imagine, because you hold a lot, and it's very awesome to hear that, Alex, where you are, they are understanding to help you through that. And you also have a therapist, but if you per se you didn't, I would hope that there would be somebody there to help you walk through some things that you are, you know, dealing with. It'd be nice to have an on-site therapist everywhere. That's my dream. I want everybody to have a therapist in their pocket at all times, I guess. Like, you know, like, but it's just it's an interesting thing that I hope that at least they start teaching kids even younger than college students how to deal with things that cause stress in your life. Because when you are in high school, you're getting ready for your basic bullshit ACT, SATs, how to do algebra that you won't ever touch again in your life, but god damn it, you're going to be depressed and you don't know how to fucking deal with it. So I'm hoping that they start teaching kids younger how to process their emotions and deal with the stresses in their lives, no matter, and it's going to be different for each person. Ben goes to the gym. I sit and play video games sometimes to decompress. And, you know, Alex, you have gone to your therapist. You do what you found fit to help you. And it's a process. It takes time. Everybody looks different.
Golf.
So, you know.
Golf. I golf a lot. No, and what you're saying, Haley, like, eliminate intro to clay or cooking and insert how to cope.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
don't teach them about Freud in high school. Teach them how to fucking cope with what Freud is trying to teach you.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. Like, instead of teaching about Pavlov's dogs, like,
right.
have them understand, like, okay, this is the cue and this is the response. So this is how brains work. Here's the cue and here's the response. So you're going to have shit in your life where it's going to be a cue and you're going to want to respond in XYZ. Everybody responds different. But here's why you should be able to cope, or here's how to cope with that cue.
Yeah, it's
the actual science behind it.
Yeah, and even if you didn't want to get like that deep into it, just, you know, educating people on, like, hey, you may or may not have, you know, certain triggers to things, and you'll have feelings that come up about stuff at certain points, and those feelings are okay. And what you do is you acknowledge those feelings, you sit with them for a second, embrace them, and go, it's okay that I feel like this, and then move forward from there. Exactly. And go like that. And I wish a lot more people would, you know, would recognize that, and that would actually be, you know, taught more. Abby was
ACEs needs to be taught in high school.
Yeah.
Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs scores. You can take it online. It's a quiz. You can take it, and it is eye-opening and can also prevent probably domestic violence disputes in the future, or help a kid like not have heart issues when they get into their early 30s, when they shouldn't be having that because they have been stuffing stress down from a young age. It's very, I said, if people are giving a shit about what I say in chat, and if you guys give a shit, if you do look up ACEs, if you look up ACEs and it's a free quiz, a very common thing used in nursing and in social work. A lot of mental health fields do use aces to do a lot of work and actually kind of a base value, and then they grow from there. Take the quiz, answer it honestly, and then kind of sit and reflect on it for a second. Because the higher you score on it means you might have dealt with a lot more shit than you realized, and kind of sit and reflect and go from there. Maybe contact somebody if you feel the need.
Right.
But yeah, that's all I got. That's my little standpoint on that. Anyways.
Abby was saying that, for an example from what we were kind of just talking about, that education has been getting better since the pandemic started. And for background, for those of you that don't know, Abby's a teacher in Omaha. I don't know. That wasn't too much. She's a teacher.
No, that wasn't too much.
Okay.
She's fine.
Okay, cool. Better than ever. She said that it's getting better than ever since the pandemic, of acknowledging that there is a high mental health issue among teachers and fellow educators, and that now there are, pretty much every school has a therapist or a counselor, on site to help. So there are fields and jobs and stuff that are understanding it and are getting better with acknowledging it and doing something to help combat it and educate people, which is good to see.
Jesus, was that Miss Garza that you're talking about? That one teacher? I'm just curious because I remember Jesus and I went to high school together.
Cool.
I remember our counselor, and she was not much of a counselor. Like she was not much of a counselor, but I think I know who Jesus is talking about, like that one teacher, because she was kind of the same way. And I think it, like, not to speak for Jesus, but again, going to the same high school, we weren't like best friends, but we were friends. To be at that age and to be homosexual, especially in a Hispanic environment, I mean, that had to have been tough. Like, that had to have been real hard, because the Hispanic culture is not very forgiving to the homosexual community. Like, you want to talk about a very masculine, macho culture. I am glad Miss Cavazos, please. Oh, from BL Gray. Okay, yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. Yep. Anyway, I thought it might have been Miss Garza, because Miss Garza was, shout out Anna Garza, badass teacher. Anyway, not to derail the conversation.
No, it's common that America and the United States as a whole, the culture in the U.S. is very individualistic, whereas almost everywhere else in the world is very, oh God, the term is escaping me.
It's like
the
very,
opposite.
yeah, it's like very family and community based.
Correct. And so it's very based in tradition. And when that tradition wavers ever so slightly, it creates a ripple, and it's scary because it's all a lot of families have known. And stability wise, and this goes for marginalized communities, because the amount of stability they've had to already fight for and gain at this point now looks kind of not stable when a figure is falling out of the mold that had been created for them long before. That goes along with generational trauma. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But and something that I have a difficulty speaking on fully, just because I am a white female. I grew up in a upper middle class home in a bubble in the middle of Tennessee with the richest one of the richest counties in the U.S. I have no place to speak on their experiences, but I can say that if anything, that I can't imagine not having or feeling the freedom to be who I am. And I'm not very unique. I am, like I said, a straight white female. I ain't got much else to say, and my parents weren't perfect, but they loved me and have supported me through my journey through school. Wasn't like my first 4 years, I wasn't done in that, I've taken my time, and I'm not perfect, and they've supported me along the way. Whereas a lot of other families, maybe not just in marginalized communities, I'm not saying that, just because you're white, your family loves you and you're great.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we get
cool.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
But so I can't imagine. It'd be really interesting to also I've sat down with people in these communities and feeling that generational pressure to be a certain way and go a certain route. I mean, that's why a lot of stereotypes have been created. Why Indian, Asian family are like, my parents want me to be a doctor. And it's kind of funny, like when you like see it in television series, like Aziz Ansari did I can't remember the name of the show at the top of my head, but his parents were always like, where's your girlfriend? Where's your wife? Why aren't you a doctor yet?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like kind of holy shit that conversation happens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, it's hurtful. Hurtful, but like I feel pain to hear that thing. Like you are not loved and accepted to the fullest extent that you are deserving of. Anyway, that's more tangents.
Yeah, and Jesus, you maybe hadn't come out as gay yet, but I knew you were gay, bro. Like I love you to death. I love you to death. I'd take a bullet for you, but I knew you're gay, man. Like, again, I love you to death, and I'd take a bullet for you, but
at least you didn't out him. And
Yeah.
At least you didn't come out of the closet.
No,
for him,
no.
Which happens too.
Yeah.
And it's nice now. It's really nice. Like something that this podcast has done for me is like thinking back on my relationship with Jesus. Like we weren't like close friends necessarily, but he was always super nice to me. I always try to be really nice to him, you know, and it just didn't fucking matter, you know, like it does now. Like I don't give a shit if you like boys or you like girls. Like I don't fucking care. Live your life and be as happy as you can. And like if you're nice to me, I'm gonna try to be nice to you, you know. That's what it should be. It shouldn't matter what you like. I don't fucking care. Drink Busch Light, drink Miller Lite, drink IPAs. I don't fucking care. It's all the same to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've rolled through close to an hour and a half very quickly.
How long has it been? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, it has been an hour and a half.
So, I think now after, you know, I think now is probably a good time. I know you guys have been talking a lot amongst yourselves in the
Chat's been
chat,
popping off,
and I
yeah.
appreciate it that you guys are like there talking to each other about everything and sending kind words and supporting each other. It's awesome. It makes my heart happy. If you guys have anything else like along this topic or anything that we've been, you know, mentioned so far, like please feel free to, you know, send it now and we'll talk about it for a little bit if you have any like burning questions for any of us. And while you guys do that, I just want to, you know, thank everybody for, you know, coming to today's episode and sitting here and listening to us talk. All the new followers of our podcast, I appreciate you guys. I know I didn't like shout you out as it happened, but you know we do appreciate you guys coming in here and dropping a follow and showing support. And I want to welcome, just off of not to like call you out, but just to say, but Pinjazu, you're new here and we appreciate you and welcome you. He's he or she, sorry, I don't want to like just assume. They're from Finland, and as I was listening to you guys talk, I was monitoring what they were saying. So they offer some good insight on like, I guess, how the mental health stuff works in Finland, and that was interesting to see. No problem. All right, well, I appreciate you coming and, you know, welcome, and we hope to see you again. We cover a lot of different topics, just fair warning. Mainly recently, it's been a lot of American politics and problems in America, but we are more than happy to talk about things outside of the U.S. Combo, one of our longtime viewers, has been harping on me to talk about Canadian politics, so I'll take a look into that on my week off. And
speaking of politics, Scott Zimmerman is running for Libertarian governor in Nebraska. Back the beard. Scott Zimmerman for governor. Shout out Scott. We interviewed him a couple.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's been like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, for those of you who didn't know, we interviewed Scott Zimmerman
I
probably
ordered
a month
my
ago.
shirt and I got it in the mail today, and I was like, fucking wearing it on the podcast.
Hell
Back
yeah.
the beard.
Yeah, and you're right. People do learn from differences. So, if at any time, you know, hit us up on the social media that'll pop up at the end, and let us know if you've got a topic that you think you want us to like take a look at in Finland or in Europe or anything. we'd be more than happy to do some research into it and talk about it. We're always looking for different and interesting topics to talk about, because we did call this podcast What in the World podcast, not in What in the America podcast. So we have been hyper focused on that recently, but I do want to try and get us to branch out to some other things.
And Pinjazu, your English can be as bad as humanly possible, and there's no judgment here.
No, we'll figure it out.
In a no judgment
English
zone
is also
here.
one of the hardest languages to learn.
No, for sure.
I don't think that's fair for anybody when it's the most expected language for everybody to learn, when it's one of the most difficult.
Very true. So you type whatever you want to type out, and we'll figure it out from there. I realized it already, but thank you. Of course. So yeah, if you guys don't have any other burning issues, thoughts, comments, concerns, we'll probably just wrap it up for this week. I will say next week we will not have a podcast next week. I will be out of town on our regularly scheduled day that we do this. So look for a podcast the following week. Pinjazi with the follow as well. Appreciate you. So look for a podcast the following week. Let me see. I will try. I don't know if I'm going to have time. At some point, this will end up on the YouTube channel as well. But I leave tomorrow for my trip, so I don't know. I'll try and get to it when I get back and get it up before the following episode, 2 weeks from today. So that is that. Time zones will but I come when I can. Sleep again. Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. I know you guys, Finland's probably 7-8 hours maybe ahead of East Coast America. So yeah, it is probably super late for you right now.
I'm glad you're here.
But we are 1000% glad you're here. Glad we're 3:28 a.m. Holy Lord. Yeah, it's 7 hours ahead. But yeah, so for everybody else that was here as well, listening to us, talk with Haley about this, we appreciate you guys. And other than that, we'll see you. Yeah, of course.
I do want to say something real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Just if we haven't said it enough, you never know what battle the person you're encountering is facing when you talk to them. So whether it's at the gas station or as a customer or as an employee, whatever the case may be, the battle that person's fighting in their own head might be greater than you could ever realize. So just try and be good to people. Just try to meet them with grace and understand that you have no idea what's happening in that person's world, and just be good to people and just try to make their day better. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep.
Just try to make somebody's day better every day. If that's the first thing you think in your head when you wake up, just try and make somebody's day better. And I promise we'll all be better for it.
For sure. Pinjazu, you said it right there. Being positive doesn't cost you a thing. So
exactly.
Being kind to somebody, smiling at somebody, not a penny out of pocket.
Hold the door open at the gas station. If someone's 42 cents short in front of you at the gas station, I'm sure 42 cents is not going to bankrupt you. And if it is, you don't have to pay for it. But just do something nice for someone. Try to make somebody's day better.
Yep. Like we say every week on our sign off, you guys have a good week, have a safe week. Be kind to people, be kind to yourselves, and tell somebody you love them, man. Tell somebody you love them. And with that, we will see you guys in 2 weeks for the next episode. So have a great couple of weeks. If you guys need anything, again, our socials are about to pop up on the screen. Hit us up if you need anything. Much love to everyone, and we'll talk at you in a couple weeks. All right, bye, y'all.
I love you guys. Be good to somebody.